Today we're here to talk about fracking. And while many of you may have heard about fracking and why it's controversial, you may not know what it is. Fracking, or hydraulic fracturing, is a way to get minerals and oils out of the ground. It is done by digging a well deep into the ground. And when I say deep, I mean 1 to 2 miles deep. It is when it reaches the oil that they are trying to get, it is then turned horizontally into the oil. Water is then sprayed hard, up to 9,000 pounds per square inch, and then sprayed into the oil to fracture it up, to break it all down, and it is then sucked back up. And there are many ways in which this is controversial, and we are now going to go on to discuss these ways.
Talk about the history and politics around fracking. Since 1943, Florida has produced approximately 25 billion gallons of crude oil and gasoline, and peak drilling started in around the 1970s. As of 2015, 31 states produce crude oil and 33 states produce natural gas. States have primary regulatory authority over fracking and regulate the location of spacing of wells, drilling methods, lining of wells, the process of fracking itself. There were several acts that were approved and legislated for fracking, one of which is the Clean Air Act. The Clean Air Act states that air pollutants were emitted during oil and gas production, and there was also a Clean Water Act which regulates all pollution discharged into surface waters and requires oil and gas operators to obtain permits to discharge produced water. So there is environmental action being organized against drilling in the Big Cypress National Preserve, where drilling is currently allowed. Big Cypress National Preserve protects over 729,000 acres of swamp containing both tropical and temperature plant communities. The land filters water into an underground aquifer that provides drinking water for the city of Naples. Of particular interest to drillers is a geological area called the Sinoland Trend beneath the preserve.
And the fracking has many environmental impacts such as air pollution, natural landscape destruction, water contamination, and increase in seismic events. And the main pollutants released during the fracking process include volatile organic compounds which react with nitrogen oxides to produce ground-level ozone, also known as smog. One of the pollutants, methane, which is 86 times more powerful pollutant than carbon dioxide, adds global warming pollution to the atmosphere during fracking. Pollutants are released at multiple steps during fracking, including hydraulic fracturing and well completion, and in processing and transporting the gas to the users. And the well paths, new roads, pipelines, and other infrastructure built for fracking turns forest and country landscapes into industrial zones. Gas infrastructure replaces forest and farmland, destroying wildlife habitat, and the remaining wild areas are increasingly fragmented and inhospitable to wildlife. And even though the well operations are supposed to restore damaged landscapes after drillings are complete, full restoration is nearly impossible, especially as oil and gas producers struggle financially and may lack the resources to fund land restoration. And also, events like earthquakes can occur at higher rates than normal rates due to human activity such as fracking. Fracking also requires huge volumes of water for each well, and water is a precious commodity in our state. Florida has a high water table, and the chemicals used in fracturing could contaminate our water supplies. Spills and injections of fracturing fluids can allow gases or liquids to move to the groundwater resources, and the discharge of fracturing wastewater can be a threat for our surface water. So all these things considered, Florida's unique nature is not a good candidate for the fracking, and at least our most important natural areas should be kept off limits, and federal officials should ban the fracking on our public lands, including national parks and the public forests.
And I want to talk to you about the potential health effects that are associated with fracking. First, I just want to do a quick rundown of what fracking is. So basically, what fracking essentially wants to do is extract oil, gas, and other natural products from the deep down into the Earth's crust. So what they do is they dig down with a drill, and until they reach this thing called shale formation. When they reach the shale, they basically punch it with water, rock, salt, and other chemicals to basically dislodge it or fracture the rock. When this happens, the natural oil and other gases rise up out of the hole, which can be captured and essentially used for our own gain. However, today in America, we like our efficiency and to make things work better and faster. So instead of using thousands of gallons of water and sand and chemicals, they're using millions upon millions of gallons. And yes, this does increase the amount of gas that is released and everything that we want. That also increases the possibility and number of harmful chemicals that can release out of the hole, which will eventually lead to disastrous health ramifications. So, when we're talking about routes of administration for these harmful chemicals, the two main ways are through ingestion of water and inhalation through when you're breathing. So basically, through water, the one that has been mostly discovered and kind of talked about is methanol. This, from fracking, can get into the drinking water, and when ingested in sufficient quantities, can cause nerve damage as well as blindness. That is really the main water one, and I'm going to talk about some of these ones that can be inspired through air. So the very first one is this chemical called trimethylbenzene. Basically, it's this big ring with 3 methyl groups on it, which are carbons. Basically, if you inhale this for a short period of time, you can basically experience eye, skin, respiratory distress. You can find yourself having some central nervous system damage, and then as well as chemical pneumatitis, which is basically where your air tubes kind of become inflamed through the chemicals. And then if you inhale this for a really long amount of time, the main one they kind of talk about is chronic bronchitis, which basically your lungs become inflamed and they become infected and they don't work as well, which can cause shortness of breath and possible lower blood oxygen levels. The next one is xylene, which is very similar to trimethylbenzene, but there's one less little carbon, but same thing. This could really cause really big damages with your central nervous system, which can cause headaches, dizziness, as well as nausea and vomiting if this is inhaled for a long amount of time. Then the main one that has been found in the most concentration around fracking areas is called benzene, which is just a simple ring, but it can cause a lot of harmful damages if inhaled in large amounts. Short term, this can actually happen within minutes to hours of inhaling this product for amount of time. So you can basically start experiencing dizziness, rapid or irregular heartbeats, headaches, tremors, even loss of consciousness, and if possible, you can possibly die from this. Then long term, you can see adverse effects in the blood and bone marrow. This is effective, and this is very problematic because the bone marrow is where you make blood, you make your white blood cells, and any other things that can basically keep you alive. So if you have problems with this, you can have associated anemia, which is lower blood count, and also this thing called leukocytopenia. This term basically just describes that you have lower amounts of white blood cells, which basically makes you more prone to infections. So yes, I want to make a disclaimer that all these are only possibilities and they're not 100% statistically found that they are produced from fracking every time, but they are definitely serious issues that are associated with fracking, and they should be considered when you are thinking about fracking in any state, especially Florida.
If it's one thing this class has taught me is to assess both sides to every situation, and that every decision made has hidden costs that should be assessed. In terms of fracking, many are in favor as it is a source of revenue and financial stability for some. It provides many jobs for many people, and possibly more important is the fact that it leads to less dependence on foreign nations for energy source. However, the jobs provided are usually not long-lasting and usually end when wells run dry. There are also huge environmental drawbacks such as water contamination, habitat and species destruction, to which no price can truly be placed on. Fracking also utilizes a whole lot of water, approximately 7 million gallons per well. Fracking for natural gas can also contribute to global warming as natural gas vents to atmosphere. Fracking is also known to lead to earthquakes. States such as Oklahoma, Texas, and Colorado have seen a rise in seismic activity, which corresponds to an increase in fracking. Such disasters could impose huge financial losses.
So as you can see, fracking has many effects on medical, economic, environmental, and political areas. There have actually been unsuccessful bills to get fracking banned in Florida in the years 2016, 2017, and even 2018, which was just unsuccessfully passed in March. There are many things that you can actually do to help with this issue. First, you can be aware. Go out and learn more about fracking and see how it affects the environment, economics, politics, and even your own health. There's also many other things you could do, such as vote with your dollar and many other things. So go out, make a difference.